Lucerne County in northeast Pennsylvania is one of those industrial communities that has fallen on tough times over the years. To political observers, it is also known as a place that supported Barack Obama twice and then flipped to Donald Trump in 2016.
Ms. Penn, how did it go today?
In the aftermath of the legal bombshells involving Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort, here in Lucerne, voters like Anne-Marie Lenahan, a registered Democrat who voted for Trump, is so encouraged by the economy, she says she can overlook allegations of Trump's infidelity.
Unless the money came from campaign funds, then I don't think that it's good.
I see. So that's where you draw that sort of line.
Yes.
I see.
But I would still vote for him again.
Trump's win in this part of the state is also thanks in part to Democrats like Eileen and Richard Sorokas.
This is all from Obama's campaign,
who, after voting twice for President Obama, switched their vote to Trump. Here's what the couple told CNN weeks after Trump's inauguration.
You gotta get the politically correct things out of here and get a businessman, get this country straight out, get the deficit down.
The couple stands by their decision.
Our retirement is in the stock market, and the stock market's been growing for quite a while now, so I'm sort of happy what's happening with the economy.
The Sorokas say the legal crises involving Cohen and Manafort as a sideshow, and many others here agree.
The investigations were supposed to be about Russia interference in our elections, and so far I've seen nothing concerning that.
As a candidate, Trump infamously joked about the dedication of his supporters.
Well, the polls, they say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Loyalty only goes so far, and supporters here say it could be tested if Trump began issuing pardons.
The pardons, I don't agree with them.
Barbershop owner Aldo Satorio is an independent voter who supported Trump. If the pardons started coming down, would that change your minds about voting for him?
That's going to be in my decision. That would be in a decision, sure.
Sure. Also mine.
The president better watch about the pardons, because with the pardons that he does that, it looks like it was set up by him with the last couple of tweets that he had, where he sticks up for, who is it, the guy out there talking about
Manafort?
Manafort. And he says he's a great guy and he's wonderful and everything else. And he's kind of sending a message that if you stick with me, I will pardon you.
And, Poppy, in addition to the pardons, the other line in the sand for many of the Trump supporters that we spoke to would be if the Mueller investigation found any collusion between members of the Trump campaign and Russians. Again, that would be another line in the sand for many of the folks we spoke to here. But they also expressed a great deal of frustration that the Mueller investigation had not wrapped up yet. Poppy?
That was a fascinating piece, Jason. Thank you so much for that. Let's talk about it. Out front now, Rob Astorino, who is serving on the Trump 2020 Advisory Board. He is a new CNN contributor. And Jen Psaki, former White House Communications Director for former President Obama. Nice to have you both here.
Great to be here.
Good to have you. So, Rob, to you first. I mean, the voters were clear in that piece. It was fascinating. I didn't know that they would say that, and they'd be so concerned about potential pardons here, but they were clear that's a red line. Still tonight, the White House, and I quote Sarah Sanders, quote, "The president has not made a decision on pardoning Paul Manafort or anyone else." That's not a no. In your opinion, should the Trump White House right now close the door on a possible Manafort pardon right now?
I don't think it matters right now because the action is going to speak. And if he doesn't do it, or at some point he comes out and says, no, I'm not going to do it, or doesn't ever speak about it again, it's a closed issue.
Well, why do you think it doesn't matter when all those Trump voters just told us it does matter?
By the way, I agree with them. I don't think he should. Not because he can't. He has absolute power to do that. Any president does.
But why even give them the room to speculate?
I don't think he should.
Worry.
I honestly think he should not ever even consider it or issue a pardon, because I think that sends the wrong message.
All right, Jen, to you, would a presidential pardon of Paul Manafort be a gift to Democrats?
Yes, in the sense that it would continue to energize Democratic voters about how outrageous this violation of the rule of law is. And it might make, as we just saw in that piece, some independent voters, some people who are on the line question whether this is a guy who is draining the swamp or if he's a part of this, corrupt Washington that they hate so much.
I mean, just on that point, Rob, to you, the swamp, right, that the president said he was going to drain. Paul Manafort was convicted by a jury of his peers of some pretty horrible things, right, of defrauding American taxpayers, and the president still called him a good guy who he feels bad for. Isn't that bringing the swamp right along with you?
Well, I think what he meant there, and maybe I'll do a Trump translation, he worked with him, he helped him, and so he thinks he's a good guy. He should have said, comma, who did a bad thing. And you can't excuse what he did.
Okay, I just need to note that you work on the Trump 2020 Advisory Committee, and therefore you have signed an NDA that includes a non-disparagement clause. So you can't really tell me then if I mean, you really don't believe the president's own words? He's a good guy. About Paul Manafort?
Are you talking about Paul Manafort?
Yeah.
No, look, I've known people. Have you ever met somebody that you knew well or knew or worked with who did something wrong? Yeah, who did something wrong.
They became a convicted felon? No, nor would I say after the fact that defrauded the American people, they're a good person.
They could be a good person who did a bad thing. I think we can make that distinction. And there are bad people who do bad things. Yeah. You know how many people commit fraud who evade taxes?
No,
I'm not saying it's the right thing.
Not...
Poppy, let me get this straight. It is not a good thing, and he should go to jail for what he did.
Down? Okay, Jen Psaki, your take.
I mean, I think there's a really dangerous lowering of the bar here of what's acceptable. People have served in governments, for the White House and the federal government for hundreds of years. And we have Trump supporters saying things like, at least it's not treason. What is happening in this country? Of course, Paul Manafort is a bad guy. And Trump is, of course, trying to keep him in his corner. We all know what's happening there. And I don't think it's an easy thing to explain, even for his supporters.
Well, but every time a president issues a pardon, it's to somebody who did a bad thing. They're paying their debt to society, or did pay, but they did a bad thing. And
I think we can all agree there's a big difference between
for this reason or that reason, I'm giving you a pardon.
There's a big difference between pardoning somebody who has served time for being, dealing drugs and have served 30 years and they've served an extended period of time, and then pardoning someone who has violated and potentially colluded with Russia. We don't know yet. So, I mean, there's a huge difference here. Of course, there are pardons in the past, but the possibility of pardoning someone like Paul Manafort, this is, again, Trump putting out there that he's above the law, and that's what people don't like about it.
Is there a pardoning? You say, look, don't you know people who've done this, or a lot of people do a lot of bad things? Shouldn't there be a different standard this high in politics? Shouldn't there be a different standard if you're running a campaign for 5 critical months?
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I'm not making any excuse, and neither are those voters in Pennsylvania. Paul Manafort did what he did, no connection to the campaign. And here's the big issue, and I think voters are understanding that. It has nothing to do with Russia, certainly at this point that we know of, and it has nothing to do with the campaign of President Trump. And it had everything to do with what he did 10 years ago, and he's paying those prices.
Money that he got from the Ukrainian government that was
propped up. He's wrong.
That was propped up by the Putin regime, the Yanukovych regime. And by the way, I mean, he's the man who led the change of the Republican platform having to do with Ukraine and Russia.
And he's also been involved in
RNC.
Republican Party politics going back to President Ford.
I get that, but that does not change that there are ties to Russia when you look at the money here. That's what I'm saying.
But not to do with the collusion and what Mueller's looking into. That we have no facts whatsoever. What he went to jail or will go to jail for is for tax evasion and hiding money. He should go to jail for that.
And by the way, he faces money laundering charges in 3 weeks in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks,
it's nice to have you. Important conversation. Jen, thank you for being here as well.
Thank you.